From the burning mesas of the Arizona desert to the slot machine-clad boardwalks of New Jersey, it's the Imaginarium with Scott and Todd. I'm Scott Colbert,
And I am the horror nerd, Todd Starouch.
and I am under the influence of medication this week, just so you know. I've
How
been,
would how would we tell the difference?
well, yeah, I,
Just
I,
wondering.
I've been fighting a cold/sinus infection for about a week and a half now.
Oh, that sucks.
So, yeah, so I'm all loaded up on allergy and sinus medication. But I got something different today, and it's either going to put me to sleep or I'll act retarded. But, either way, as you said, nobody will really know the difference
Fair enough.
anyway. So, you know,
You
fair
won't
warning.
really know.
You know. And I was going to go to the doctor, but, this was my excitement for New Year's Eve. I looked at my calendar and saw how many times I went to the doctor in 2016, and it was 43 times over the year.
Huh.
So I was trying to avoid having to make another trip because I really hate going to the doctor. I've just seen them so much, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
So
blame you.
although I probably may as well get it in before I get my health care taken away. So.
Well, please, I just can't, Scott, anymore. I just can't.
Yeah.
This shit show just gets worse and worse and worse every day. You know, and I was out at lunch today with a colleague, and they had like on in the TVs in the diner, they had CNN playing in the background. I'm just watching the crawl, and I'm thinking to myself, it must be exhausting to be on Donald Trump's staff because you spend every moment like doing damage control and cleanup for some stupid fucking shit that he tweeted out the night before, you know?
Yeah.
Well, no, what he really meant was, or that's not that's not what he really meant, or what he's really trying to say is, and it really just must be exhausting. Like, who would even sign up for that, you know?
There, there has to be a lot of burnout that's going to be going on uh, in his administration. I see a lot of job changes over the next few months as people either just get so worn out or they just get so tired of him or whatever the case. Uh, but let's not get into that.
Yeah,
Um,
let's just let's just move on.
um, this is our first podcast of the new year, so happy New
Yes.
Year.
Yep. Same to you. Happy New Year out there, everybody.
Yep, happy New Year to our
All
listener.
nine of you
All
that might be listening. Notice I raised
So
it from three. I'm a little more
yes,
optimistic. I'm a little more
what,
optimistic for
as
2017.
well as well you should be.
Yeah.
So I pretty much know the answer to this, but did you make any New Year's resolutions for this year?
I did not. Does that
You don't
surprise you?
strike me. No, no, because you strike me as the kind of a person that doesn't make resolutions. Period.
Well, no, I don't. And look, it's fun. People do them, and then they break them, and it becomes a joke. And like, it's not about that. Like, I don't. I'm not one of those. Everyone's at the gym on January 1st, and no one's at the gym on January 10th. I just have always felt if you're gonna make a change in your life, just go ahead and make a change in your life. Like
Well, yeah.
it shouldn't just be limited to like one day where, oh, I know I don't really have to. No one expects me to really keep this resolution. So I've just always been the if you're gonna do something, just do it kind of person.
Yeah, because 9 times out of 10, when you make plans on doing something, the good example, at least for me when I smoked, was setting a date for quitting smoking. Because when you set that date, you're just setting yourself up for failure when you do it that way.
Right.
Yeah. So I just did it cold turkey. When the doctor said if you keep smoking you'll die, I pretty much quit after that. I figured that was a good time to do so. You know.
Yeah, and exactly every person I know who has truly quit smoking, that's exactly how they've done it. You know, they just got up one day and said, "No more." They threw out their cigarettes, and that was that. You know, no plan, no elaborate thing. Just fuck it, I'm done with smoking.
Yeah. Well, it was a little bit easier for me because when I quit, I was moving into the new apartment, and the old apartment I had smoked in it for well, excuse me, for years. So you get that yellow nicotine stains on the wall,
Sure,
and
sure.
I really noticed that when I was cleaning the apartment to move out, and I thought this is a really good time uh, to put my foot down and finally quit and not have that smoke smell in my apartment, not smoke in my apartment, and not have my clothes stink and all of that. And yeah, I'm not against smoking. I'm not one of these rabid anti-smokers. If you want to smoke, go ahead. If I could do it still, I probably would. I won't lie about that. But I just, I think I would rather keep on living
Yeah,
for as long
I
as I can.
I would say that. I, on the other hand, am one of those rabid anti-smoking types. But that's okay. Look, I'm also for personal freedom. As long as you're not
Yeah.
harming anybody else, you know, I do things that are bad for me as well. So, who am I to criticize someone, for doing it?
Oh yeah. Well, my father smoked up until 1976, and the day he quit was July 4th, 76, the bicentennial, and we decided that we were going to drive from Long Island into Philadelphia for the bicentennial. So of course that's the day he decides to quit.
Oh
You
boy.
know, yeah, no stress in traffic or anything like that. Uh, but he did it. And then he started exercising and uh, taking care of himself more than what he already had. And he never went back to it. And I don't know how he did that because I swear to God, if my parents were ever close to getting a divorce, it was that day.
Yeah, one of my best friends was a 2 pack a day smoker, and when he quit, I wanted nothing to do with him for like 2 weeks. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna just stay away from you. Otherwise, I'm just gonna punch you right in the fucking face.
Yeah,
Because you're just being a complete douche.
yeah.
And then
The,
once he got over it, and the psychological dependency and stuff was gone, then he came back to normal. So I didn't have to kill him.
well, that's good because I don't know that you'd be able to podcast from jail.
You never know.
No, that's
It
true.
depends. If I go to a white collar prison.
A federal prison, maybe.
Yeah.
You know. All right. So my resolution was talking about movies as much as we do on this show, and then doing the weekday matinee with Jerry and talking about movies that as much as we do on that show, it made me realize there are a lot of quote unquote classic movies that I haven't seen, and so I decided that uh, one New Year's resolution that I can keep is to watch at least one of them classic movies that I haven't seen a week, at least one, maybe more depending on what I feel like that week. But that's what I'm going to do. And so each week, kind of like a little new segment, I'm going to talk about the classic movies that I watched that week.
Cool.
Yeah. And so this week I watched two. One was Easy Rider, which obviously I had never seen. And I'm going to tell you something. I like that movie, but everybody talks about that movie. Nobody ever tells me everybody fucking dies in it. You know, after they kill Jack Nicholson, and then Dennis Hopper and then Peter Pan. I'm like, what the fuck? Nobody ever mentioned that to me. Holy shit! What a downer of an ending.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
But it's a good movie. I really do enjoy it.
Yeah, it
And
is. Yeah, Peter Fonda, good stuff.
and Jack Nicholson has a line, and I'm going to have to paraphrase it because I can't remember it verbatim. Uh, but it was something like, "People always want to be free. People always want men to be free until they see men who have their freedom," or something along those lines. You probably know the quote I'm talking about. I'm mangling
I
it.
do. I don't remember it verbatim either. Um,
Yeah, but it seems so appropriate for today as it did then. Yeah, and it's funny. A lot of what I saw in Easy Rider could really have happened today. With the
yeah,
with some of the hatred, and just towards guys with long hair. Never mind, being bikers or drug users or anything else. Uh, thank God they were white,
yeah, pretty
for
much,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
So,
think about the cast of that movie. Peter Fonda, yeah, Fonda, Dennis Hopper. Uh, Jack Nicholson before he was really Jack Nicholson.
yeah,
you know,
and
Phil Spector even has a role in that movie.
and so does Tony Basil of
Yep.
Mickey fame.
Yep. Absolutely.
She plays a hooker,
Yep.
which I was surprised at seeing. Yeah, that's a very good cast. Yeah, and of all things, Nicholson plays kind of the straight guy.
Right. Right.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of interesting seeing him in that role because it's not something that you're used to seeing him play. But the only other thing I'll say about that movie is every time I saw Dennis Hopper, I just really felt like I needed to take a shower. There's just something about his character that just gave me the willies.
Yeah, he always does.
Yeah.
In most of his roles, he's like the sleazy kind of, you know, sleazy guy, and you're like, ew. you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, and that was his directorial debut, and he did a fantastic job with that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the other movie that I saw this week, and I just watched it last night, was an old Charlie Chaplin movie. It was Modern Times,
Oh, good one.
and
Good
I
one.
again one I'd never seen. It was his last silent film,
Hmm.
although to be fair, he did use a lot of sound effects in it, and there was some talking in it, but it wasn't characters talking. It was like voiceovers from loudspeakers and stuff like that. Uh, so it was really interesting watching that, and Paulette Goddard is in it, and she has to be one of the most beautiful women from that time period.
Oh, absolutely. No question about it.
And she was married to Charlie Chaplin at the time they filmed that. And here's something you may not have known: after she divorced Charlie Chaplin, she married Burgess Meredith.
Really?
Yes,
No, I did not know that.
apparently she had a thing for ugly old men.
Yeah, really? Huh.
You know, so if I was straight, I could have had a shot at her.
How about that?
You know, if I was around at that time. Uh, and again, this is another movie that really is a reflection of today. And what I found interesting is doing some background research on modern times. When Chaplin was making the movie, he made it because he thought one of the big keys to the Great Depression, I mean, aside from the fall of the stock market, was automation and how it was putting everybody out of work. Because there were jobs that people were no longer needed for because machinery was taking care of them. And so when he's working in these factories at several points during the movie, there are these obvious, these just huge giant factories with oversized machinery, and he's just like this little cog in it. and it was really a an interesting take on the time because that was made in 1936, and again, it's relevant in 36 as it is in 16.
Yeah. Um, it's funny. I think that as time passes, there are fewer and fewer people who truly uh, appreciate Charlie Chaplin. You know, and
Yeah,
it's a shame because it's unbelievable. Whether it's just or the whole silent film era, really, how they told a whole story without ever speaking. That's why Sunset Boulevard is one of my favorite films because you get to see someone who was a silent film star and now doesn't know how to operate in the world of talking films. So I encourage everybody to watch as many Charlie Chaplin films as they can. And speaking, like you made a point at modern times, reflecting today, um, the because of the political sentiments of modern times, there was a time when the House Un-American Activities Committee or whatever it was called thought that Charlie Chaplin was a communist.
yeah,
So yeah, he got himself into some trouble for that movie, and just he was also ahead of his time for his technical wizardry.
yeah.
There's that roller skating scene. You
Yes,
know,
I was going to mention that.
right where he's blindfolded and he's
Yep.
right up to the edge. If I'm not mistaken, that that backdrop that drop was painted on a pane of glass and it was lined up with the set so that it gave like this illusion of height, you know.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I'd have to look that up. I recalling it, from something I read a long time ago. But for 1936, um, it was pretty advanced to even think of doing that.
Well, it certainly fooled me
Yeah, I
because
think, and the bulk of the filming of the movie, I think, again, I got to find that article that I read about making Modern Times, but it was almost like a full week was spent filming just that roller skating scene because he wanted to get it just right.
oh, I can imagine. It's so worth checking out, and I'm going to be watching The Great Dictator next.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, so I'll be talking about that one next week because again that's another one that has a lot of uh, reflection of today's society. As I think most movies that you would consider classic, I think are also timeless as well. They are stories, and they have lessons, so to speak, that speak to the time that it was made and to the current era, current time. And those timeless movies are absolutely magical.
Absolutely. You again, because our show here centers around art and creativity. We talk you like you said, we talk a lot about music and movies, and movies are a powerful, powerful medium. I think because today we live kind of in an era of like superhero movies and blockbusters, and not that there's anything wrong inherently with those movies, but they kind of overshadow some of the more powerful films that
Yeah,
that come out. You know, there's a reason that they're classic, just like in the music world. There's a reason that standards are called standards because they stand the test of time.
yeah,
you know and you sing a song today that was written 60 years ago and everybody knows it and everybody's familiar with it. Tony Bennett's still performing at 90 years old for a reason. you
yeah,
know so, and Scott, just so one thing I found, like if you're looking for like lists or suggestions of films to watch or whatever, I go to the AFI website a lot, the American Film Institute, and they have some great lists. They actually did a bunch of TV shows some years ago, like 100 Years, 100 Movies. They did
Right.
100 Years, 100 Laughs, like the top 100 comedies, the top 100 thrillers. But if you go to just their AFI's 100 greatest American movies of all time, that's a great list to kind of go through and say, have I seen that? Have I seen that? And your two movies, Modern Times came in at number 81, and Easy Rider is number 88.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, they both fall in well AFI's top 100
See, and
movies.
I was trying to remember. I knew there was a specific site that had a list that most people would agree on, but for the life of me, I couldn't remember what it was. I was thinking it was the because there was a magazine called Film Commentary. I don't know if it's still around or not, but for some reason I thought it was that site, but nothing was coming up. And AFI wasn't actually even coming up when I Googled like 100 best movies or whatever. Other websites were coming up, so it's not very high in Google Analytics as far as search results go. They need a good SOE to get them up there, apparently.
Yeah. They recently came out with their 100 Years, 100 Movies 10th anniversary edition, and they updated it a little bit with a few movies that came out after the original
Mm,
list that came out. So, like, Toy Story is on it, The Sixth Sense is on it, Saving Private Ryan, a few movies. It didn't change much, you know, especially the ones near the top. I won't go into it too much, but the ones you would think would be up there,
right.
Singing in the Rain, Raging Bull, Casablanca, those movies are still up there. But yeah, AFI. If anyone out there listening is looking for lists to say, hey, I want to experience some great American movies, AFI.com, American Film Institute. Um, I love all their lists. They have the 100 greatest movie quotes, 100 greatest heroes and villains, uh, 100 greatest movie stars. It's great. I like it. I'm one for lists. You
Yeah,
know,
I am too.
I like lists. So, and you're right. This one, like when I scroll through it, it's hard for me to really disagree with any of them. I might shuffle the order a little bit, you know,
Yeah,
because it's subjective, but I find it hard to disagree um, with the ones that are on there. And then if you want to expand it even more, there's a list of the 400 movies that were nominated, you know? So if you're like, "Oh, what didn't make the list?" There's still a lot of awesome movies, you know,
yeah,
on that list. I could watch movies till the end of time and still never watch every movie that I want to see, you know?
yeah. That's the same with me. Here's that quote from Easy Rider because it was bothering me that I was fucking it up, and it was such a good quote. Okay, and it's at the very end of a monologue, somewhat that Jack Nicholson gives, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. He says, "Oh yeah, they're going to talk to you and talk to you and talk to you about individual freedom, but they see a free individual and it's going to scare them." I love that quote.
Yeah,
Absolutely love it.
very, very, very appropriate.
Yep.
Very cool.
So, all right, I'm going to definitely check out AFI, and next week, like I said, I'm going to be talking about The Great Dictator, and Lawrence of Arabia.
Ah, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
that's fun. Uh, perhaps I've never seen. Which reminds me, you posted on Facebook about asking people about some of the classic movies that they've never seen, and I was surprised by some of the responses for that. I have to be honest.
Yeah, some of them didn't surprise me. Like normally, people will say Star Wars or The Godfather, um, or something like that. That they haven't Gone with the Wind, you know. One thing that I did find interesting about it is how people interpreted wildly popular. For
Yeah.
what for people who don't know what we're talking about, I had just posted a question. I was sick of all. It was only January 3rd, and I was already tired of the negativity on Facebook. So I said, name a hugely popular movie that you have never seen. I'm not asking for a big editorial on why you haven't seen it. I'm just curious. And I said, okay, I'll start. I have never seen The Sound of Music, just a few snippets in commercials and such. And a lot of people said Star Wars, Casablanca, Titanic, the Godfather. Um, so some people, like one person said The Untouchables, and I thought that was interesting. I'm not certain that that was a hugely popular film. Um, some people said The Boondock Saints, which is popular, but it's very much a cult film. Like
Yeah.
it's very popular, like among like my circle of friends,
Yeah.
But out like my father has never heard of it. Like he asked my dad about Casablanca, he's like, "Oh yeah, I watched it 2 days ago." But if you ask him about Boondock Saints, he has no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um, let's see, It's a Wonderful Life was a popular one. Jaws, The Exorcist. Someone said When a Stranger Calls. I'm not sure that that one is considered hugely popular. Um,
The Untouchables was Brian De Palma's biggest hit.
Absolutely. But when I think of like hugely popular, I think of
Yeah.
like the biggest movie, like Avatar.
Right.
It made
Hmm.
$3 billion. Uh, but yeah, no, I get it. Top Gun was one that was mentioned quite a few times, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, it was interesting. It's fun to see what people say, and I almost regret telling people I don't want to know why you haven't seen it. And there's a reason why I did that. Because whenever, like, okay, Rogue One just came out, right? And we talked about it last week. And of course, my news feed was filled with people who had to go, write a doctoral level thesis on why they have no interest in the Star Wars films. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't fucking care. Like, you don't like Star Wars, great. I don't fucking care. Many people do, and I knew what I would get. Like people would be like, I don't understand why anyone likes The Exorcist. I don't get it. All right, well,
Yeah.
all right. Rocky came up a few times. Citizen Kane. Um,
Gone with the
Kyle
Wind.
Kyle Fulton said Blade Runner.
And that surprises me. Shame on you, Carl.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that too. Um, Hunger Games was a common one.
Yeah, see, that surprised me, Hunger Games, because I did. Now, I haven't seen them either, nor have I read the books because they didn't necessarily appeal to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that those movies were well regarded, or they did very well at the box office. I
Yeah,
knew
well,
they
yeah,
probably did okay.
they made a lot of money, all things considered. I mean, they made back their budget, several times over. I read the books. I like the books better than the movies. The
Yeah,
movies were not bad. They were relatively faithful to the books. Um, I read the books because I wanted to see what the hype was all about. And at the time, I was traveling a lot for business, and they were good airplane reads because it's not a terribly difficult read. You know, the action kind of breezes along, and so that's why I liked them, and I liked it because if you read deeper, like underneath the action, there's a lot of political allegory
right.
in the books. So that's kind of why I liked it. I noticed um, a lot of that stuff. So not great, I'm not. It's not one of those movies that's gonna go down in my memory, like Star
Yeah,
Wars or something like that. A lot of
yeah.
people said the Harry Potter films. Um, Someone said Escape from New York. And again, that's to me is almost more of a cult film.
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption, that was the only one that anyone mentioned where I was like, guys, you got to see that. You got to see this movie. Like, what do you do? Like, immediately stop whatever you're doing. I'm certain that it's playing somewhere on some channel right now. Just go and watch it right now.
Well, and you also made a list on the Horror Nerd website, horrornerd.net. Go check it out. He's got Tyler's a lot of good articles on there. We don't pimp that at all, and we really need to.
Yeah, I agree, but there's a reason. Like towards the last half of last year, I neglected my website really badly. I didn't really update it as much as I should. That's going to change this year. You know, I'm going to do more blog posts and more, you know, to drive some traffic and stuff. So, but that's my fault. You know, got to give my own website some love.
Absolutely, you should. And one of the movies that you put on there was one that I had recommended to you. Was
Yeah,
Baskin, and
yeah.
and the only thing that I heard from you after you said that you were going to watch it was that was fucking weird or something to that effect.
Well, I
And then
know. Go ahead.
he
Go
didn't
ahead.
say anything else about it. And I thought, well, I guess maybe he didn't like it. But then I read that, and I mean, you liked it as much as I did.
I was trying to process it like, what the fuck did I just watch? That's what I
Yeah,
really meant by that. Not like, what the fuck was Scott thinking? But like, what the fuck did I just watch? Because I was trying to figure it out. Like, did they literally go to a literal hell? Or did they stumble across a cult whose premise was hell is what you make of it and hell is here on earth, you know?
yeah,
And I guess it's sort of an open-ended question,
yeah,
you know? Um, but then there was sort of this supernatural element where, and I hate to give away the sort of twist, but you know what I'm talking about when it turns
yeah,
out, when you find out what they hit, what they ran over with their truck,
yeah.
that really, I was like, oh God, now my head really hurts. Like, oh, what? I was like, what the fuck just happened? You know? But
Yeah,
yeah, Baskin people, it's on Netflix. Watch it. It's good.
and what did I tell you about that protagonist, the little freaky guy?
When you, I didn't believe you. I had to go look it up. That's a real fucking guy.
I
I
told
had to
you.
go look it up. Um, but that's it's sort of, I call it like the Michael Berryman
Yeah,
effect. Here's a guy who was born with like all sorts of birth defects and oddities, and he made a freaking whole career out of it. You know,
yeah,
of just looking weird. And Michael, I mean that in the best possible way.
yeah.
I've met Michael Berryman a couple of times, as many people have, and he's a very, very nice guy.
I have no doubt about that. And it's funny because 50 or 60 years ago, they'd end up being in a freak show.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Absolutely.
now they're just in a different kind of freak show.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
a
And at least they're
celluloid freak show.
getting paid for it. You know.
Well, yeah, and they're not biting the heads off of chickens like Tyrone Power
Right?
in Nightmare Alley, which is another fantastic movie that people need to watch.
Yeah, I agree. It is good.
All right, well, now there's a movie, and this was what we were going to primarily talk about, although half the show is gone now. Uh,
That's all right.
Sinbad. There was a movie that people thought Sinbad had made back in the 80s called Shazam. And but there's no record of it. Uh, there's no posters for it. There's no clips for it. And even Sinbad said he never made a movie like that. And given some of Sinbad's financial history, if he had made a movie, I damn well know that he'd be telling people in the hopes that they'd buy it and give him some residuals.
Right.
You know, so But this started off on Reddit, as most of these things do. If it's not Reddit, it's Twitter. And let's see. I'll just read this, and this is from relevantmagazine.com. This is one of the strangest internet stories you will likely ever read. There are people on Reddit and Twitter attempting to find a movie called Shazam, which starred actor and comedian Sinbad as a friendly genie. According to those who claim to have seen this movie, it came out before Shaq's critically panned comedy called Kazam and was a relatively enjoyable 90s comedy. The only problem is there's no record of such a movie ever existing, and Sinbad himself says he never acted in it or even heard of it before random people on the internet started asking him about it. So, I find this absolutely fascinating.
Me
Because,
too, because my Facebook news feed has lit up with this shit over the last week. You
yeah,
know?
mine too, and that's why I thought I would bring it up. Now, it goes on to say some people believe, the group, meaning people who swear that they've seen this movie, is falling victim to the social contagion of memory. Essentially, all of the talk about the movie is creating realistic false memories in people's minds. And if you remember, false memories was a real big thing in psychiatry back in the 80s. Repressed memories, and unfortunately, a lot of those repressed memories turned out not to be true, and that did a lot of damage to people. Not to mention their relationships with their
Oh,
family,
absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely.
because 9 times out of 10, it had to deal with some kind of abuse within the family. Um, so, I mean, I understand the theory behind that. Essentially, all of the talk about the movie is creating realistic false memories. Some people believe the movie was disappeared because Sinbad himself hated it. Some people believe it is an example of the Mandela effect, which essentially states that multiple realities have existed and splintered versions sometimes converge. In this case, in one reality, Shazam was real. Which, even if there are hundreds of realities, the fact that there was a movie called Shazam and one of them is still unfortunate. Sorry, Sinbad, but that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
But I find this really fascinating, and I don't have any real explanation for it. Uh, what is your take on it?
Well, you know me, that I am very much grounded in reality, in that I'm not a believer in the supernatural or any of that stuff. So I look at things from a scientific point of view, and I think it is just exactly that. It's the Mandela effect. Someone brought this up, and someone said, "Oh yeah, I remember that movie too," and "Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah." Memory is a very tricky thing. That's
Yeah,
why even in criminal investigations, eyewitness testimony is the least, that is considered the least reliable evidence
yeah,
in a criminal or any legal case, for that matter. I think a lot of people are confusing it with the Shaquille O'Neal movie. Um,
yep,
what I find amazing, and this is like plays into cognitive dissonance. There are people that would rather believe that, like, people from the future have come back in time to alter our reality and remove this movie from existence than believe that they're wrong, or that there's an alternate universe or a conspiracy or something like that. Occam's razor, man, the simplest explanation is probably the correct one.
yep,
And you know, and that's it. Like, and it's like much ado about nothing. And yet there are people in my news feed. I don't care what anybody says. Fuck you and your fucking Mandela effect. I know that I saw this movie. All right, all right. Like, if it's that painful for you to, like, for it to not be true, All right. What? So now what? Like, who cares? A week from now, we'll move on to the next, bullshit,
Yeah.
and
People
uh,
just people
and
just
we'll
hate to
forget all
admit they're
about it.
wrong.
And we'll forget all about it.
People hate to admit they're wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget in college, I took a business law class, and before we got into like the real business law part of it, and we were doing just basic legal concepts. During one of the lectures, like a guy ran into the room, spoke to the professor for a couple of seconds, left the room, and then towards the end of the lecture, the professor said, "Okay, we're gonna do a quiz," and he handed out a quiz, and all the questions were about the man that had come into the room. What color was his hair? What color was his suit? What color was his tie? Was he wearing glasses? And oh my God, did we fuck it up so bad? And he had the guy
Yeah.
come in and he said, "This is why eyewitness testimony can't be relied upon." You know? Like people said he had dress shoes on, he was wearing sneakers. Like people said he had on a red tie, he had on a blue tie. So it's
Right.
just misremembering, but I say that all the time. I'll just be like, you know what, dude, I don't remember it that way, but okay, if you say so, I'm not going to argue about it because it's not worth it.
Yeah.
you know? So it's just
Yeah.
weird.
And that happens, in my family too. We'll take some incident that happened in my childhood, and my sister, my mom, and myself will all remember the same thing differently. Because we see it from all our perspectives, but sometimes they're just like totally opposite of what I remember happening. And then you start to create, well, did I actually remember that happening, or did I just make that up? And maybe they're right. And then you just start wondering if I'm losing your mind.
Yeah, which we probably are.
Yeah, no doubt. But this reminded me, and I sent you a link to this. It reminded me of the hundredth monkey effect, and I'm reading this from the Wikipedia page on the hundredth monkey, so people will know where to go if they want to see the whole thing. Uh, the story of the hundredth monkey effect was published in Lyle Watson's foreword to Lawrence Blair's Wisdom of Vision in 1975. The account is that unidentified scientists were conducting a study of macaque monkeys on the Japanese island of Koshima in 1952. These scientists observed that some of these monkeys learned to wash sweet potatoes, and gradually this new behavior spread through the younger generation of monkeys. Obviously in the usual fashion, just through observation and repetition. Watson then concluded that the researchers observed that once a critical number of monkeys was reached, i.e., the 100th monkey, this previously learned behavior instantly spread across the water to monkeys on nearby islands. So, what he's saying is, to paraphrase, monkeys on island A learned to wash sweet potatoes. Monkeys on island B began washing sweet potatoes because there were enough monkeys as a collective consciousness on island A to somehow transmit that to island B. Now, and for me, that's a very striking parallel to what's going on with the Sinbad movie.
Oh, I agree. And and we talked about doing a show one day about like different, about psychics and mediums and faith healers and such. But the the reason that uh, psychics and these people are able to do what they do is they take advantage of known psychological effects like the Mandela effect, or like you just mentioned, the hundredth monkey, or mass hallucination, mass hysteria, are very real psychological phenomenon. But the problem is, person A will sit back and say, "Oh, that could never happen to me. I
Yeah,
could never be a victim of mass hysteria or mass delusion or whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, you could, and it's very easy to experiment. Go to any big city, Stop in front of a tall building and just start to look up. Eventually, you'll have a crowd around you, and they will all see something that's not there. It's
Yeah,
very easy to demonstrate the effect. It really is. So, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. The mind is a funny thing, you know? This is how a magician can fool you, or a street hustler can fool you,
yeah,
you know? It's they're just taking advantage of quirks that we've figured out about the brain, you know?
absolutely. And we know so little about, the brain. I mean, we know, well, we know a lot, but compared to what we don't know about it, you, you really can't even begin to think what's possible and what we actually are doing and just aren't aware of it.
Yeah, absolutely. There are times where it's a Saturday and I'm in my car, and the next thing I know, I'm halfway to work, and I'm like, holy shit, I was on fucking autopilot for the last
Yeah.
30 minutes.
And
I'm
then you
like,
wonder,
God damn it,
did I run a red light? Did
Huh?
I run a red light? Did I run a red light? That's what you think.
Yeah,
That's happened to me, and that wasn't because I was blacked out drinking. That's just because your mind just wanders sometimes.
yeah, absolutely.
That happens. Did I take my pills today?
Mm.
Then I go back through everything that I was doing up until the time that I normally take my pills to see if I remember uh, getting them out of the bottles. So, but I think that's probably just old age.
Yeah, it could be.
You know how that goes. Yeah.
Senility setting in.
So yeah, I just think this is you know interesting. And really, would a Sinbad movie be that important to come back from the future to take? What was in that movie that was so important that they
Yeah,
had to abscond with it? You know?
yeah. No, the whole thing. I think like the fact that some people are so adamant about it um, is fascinating to me. I'm like, why is it really that important to you that it really have happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, weird
I
shit.
I, I think maybe it's because people wanna believe in it. As skeptical as they may be, there's still that part of them that wants to believe that things like that can happen. That there are instances where uh, that occurs in the world, or there's time travel, or there's magic, or something. And it just because people just like to cling on to those ideals, I suppose. I don't know.
Again, I think it's just people. I think it's more just people's inability to admit that they could possibly be wrong. You know,
Yeah.
and now what made it a little bit worse is someone did a pretty convincing Photoshop job and mocked up a phony VHS cover for the movie. And what's funny is, as fast as someone did that, some other nerd was able to deconstruct it and find all the pieces that they used to make it. You know, and I'm like, come on, folks, do 5 seconds worth of research. Because so people were like, aha, here's the proof, a VHS copy. Like, nah, sorry, but no. Wah wah wah.
If people spent that much energy trying to make the world a better place,
Right?
you know, just my thought on that. Now, you had a rant today
Did I?
about, yeah, well, I guess it was a mini rant, I suppose. I don't know that you would classify it as a rant, but you were talking about the 12-year-old girl
Yeah.
in, I think it was
Yeah.
Georgia, who had filmed her
Yeah.
suicide, and it's online and people were watching it, and you were like, "What the fuck is wrong with people?"
I Scott, I you know, I for the last I've been thinking about this ever since I heard about the case over the weekend. You know, I don't watch a ton of news because it's too depressing, but I just stumbled across it and I'm like, wow, how awful that was. And then I saw some articles start to be posted about it and about the live stream and everything, and I got involved on one thread, and I just was like, I don't understand why anyone would watch this video. Um, and then it got most people kind of agreed with me, and then enough people disagreed with me that I decided to then write about it on my own page. Um, so I'll just say it real. I'll just go through it real quick. This is what I wrote. I refuse to share any links or posts about this on my page, but apparently a 12-year-old girl in Georgia live streamed her suicide. There are links available to watch the video, and there are people watching it and actually admitting as much. My brain hurts as I try to understand why someone would watch such a video and what they would get out of it. I guess deep down in some dark recess of my brain, I understand that there are twisted people out there, but still. And people are offering up all sorts of rationalizations and justifications for why they watched it. I wanted to truly understand what she was going through. I want to understand what would drive a 12-year-old to take their own life. Blah 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 blah. You're
Yeah,
not going to understand it. Think about it. A 12-year-old girl thought that life was so bad and so meaningless that she hung herself and live streamed it to the world. I can't even comprehend that. But the fact that it happened, if you're so concerned about preteen suicide, the mere fact that a 12-year-old killed themselves should spur you to do research, uh, and to
yeah,
try to understand. Don't fucking tell me that you needed to watch that video to understand. That's like saying you watch animal abuse videos to try to understand why people abuse animals. We
yeah,
know people abuse animals, right? It's voyeurism and it's morbid curiosity, and no matter what anybody says, no one is going to shake me from that belief. Well, clearly this is what she wanted. She wanted this video to be seen by people. She's 12. I have a daughter who's about to
yeah,
be 12. She is a child. She doesn't know what she wants. Okay? So, not only that, it's a 12-year-old that killed herself. Clearly, she was not in the right frame of mind.
yeah,
So don't tell me, oh, this is what she would have wanted. Fuck you, and fuck you for watching the video. I'm sorry, Scott. I got fired up about this one because I want to know. And some people that I know really well wrote some bullshit about why they watched the film, and I'm like, oh, were you so concerned about suicide prevention yesterday? Because you
yeah,
certainly never mentioned it. You certainly never mentioned in any of our conversations, oh my God, there's a real problem with teen suicide. I'm gonna go see what I can do. I'm gonna volunteer for a suicide hotline or something. No, all of a sudden now there's a video where you can watch it, and now you're just trying to justify and rationalize why you watched it. The
yep,
true heroes out there who are trying to help these kids are not out there publicizing it. You know, oh, I watched this video so I can gain a deeper understanding of what's going through their mind. Shut up. You want to help? Get off the internet. Go volunteer become a big brother or a big sister to a teen or a preteen who's being bullied. Uh, go volunteer somewhere to counsel kids that are being teased or bullied. Don't,
yep,
post on the internet about how you watched some video and now you have some deep enlightenment as to why some 12-year-old um, would kill themselves. And in closing, I'll just say I reposted my original thing today, and I did an addendum to this effect. My question is, how many of the people who are claiming they watched it to try and understand are now going to volunteer? If they're so concerned with what would drive a 12-year-old to do this, let's see them actually do something to try and prevent the next one. I got 2 likes and no replies. Why? Because people know that they're fucking full of shit. That's why.
Yep.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm done.
No, that's perfectly all right, and you're absolutely right about that. And here's the thing about this video, and what disturbs me about it. She recorded it on this app called Live Made, which is rather ironic, I suppose. But then somebody actually had to push a button to upload it to Facebook because it was uploaded to Facebook, but it wasn't live streamed on Facebook. It was just loaded onto it.
Okay, thank you
So,
for
so
clearing that up. I was not completely aware of the technology that had been used. So,
that was from a couple of articles that I
okay.
read. There was a shitload of them. But what I found fascinating is in the comments section is how people thought that it was a hoax or fake somehow.
Um, I am not too terribly surprised by that just because of how fucked up the internet is. But a few minutes worth of research, and you found out that it wasn't bullshit. Like it didn't take
Yeah.
long for me to do my due diligence and find out that it was a real thing. And like I said, I had heard about it on a news outlet over the weekend because it happened last Friday. So I knew about it before social media kind of took hold of it.
Yeah, and I hadn't heard of it until you had mentioned it. Because I don't watch the news on television anymore. And oddly enough, it didn't trend on Facebook or Twitter, which I would have thought it would have for sure, because that's the kind of a thing that seems to be made for going viral on social media.
I agree in a way. Uh, I'm kind of glad about that. You know,
Yeah, I am too.
I'm glad that it really didn't go bananas. And like of course, there are some people that complained. Uh, how come no one's how come no one's posting about this, but people are posting, and like, oh god, another keyboard warrior
Yeah,
telling us what we should or should not be paying attention to. Oh great.
yeah. That was one of the responses to your post that really annoyed me. Was when you know, people were saying, "Well, we should be thinking about why she killed herself in the first place." Well, yes, we should, but that's not the point of this post. You can post about different takes on the same subject, and it just annoys me that somehow because you posted about the reaction to it, what people were doing with the video, that somehow you weren't thinking about why this girl was committing suicide. And I know you better than that, particularly because I know you have an 11-year-old daughter.
Yeah, and of
So I
course,
know that was on your mind.
yeah.
And people just need to shut the fuck up and let people post what they want to without having to come across as like some kind of fucking white knight.
Yeah, I didn't. I briefly kind of addressed that. I'm like, yeah, no, I get that. Like, I get that, but that just goes to my further point that no one, and granted, it's a difficult subject matter. It's a tough
Yeah.
thing. But again, like all these people now, like, well, where were you? And I've known some people 30 years, and I've never heard them once talk about their such deep ingrained concern for people who are contemplating suicide. You know, I mean, I
Yep.
myself, I do some volunteer, not for suicide. I volunteer for different things, but I volunteer for various things, and I don't talk about it because I'm not looking for recognition, for doing
Right.
it. I do it because it makes me feel good to do it. But if someone asks, I'm happy to talk about it. I volunteer at a VA hospital, and I volunteer at the Red Cross, boxing up care packages that they send out all over the world to victims of disasters, or whatever. I
Yeah.
do it because it feels good to help some people out. Um, but I'm not going to admonish anybody, for what they do or do not do. You know, please. Uh,
Yeah. Absolutely agree with you.
all right.
All right. Well, that took us to our wrap up
Yeah,
time.
I'm
There you go.
sorry.
No, excuse me. That's fine because I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit today too, and it just seemed appropriate since we were kind of talking about the other stuff, the other fucked up stuff on the
Yeah,
internet. Talk about something really fucked
yeah.
up. You know, yeah, I do have concerns about why a 12-year-old girl would want to uh, kill themselves. But it points to a greater thing. It's like ISIS would post videos of the beheadings and everything that they do, and people would watch those. And I never understood that. I don't understand people's morbid curiosity with seeing atrocities. It boggles my mind.
Yep. I don't get it. Look, I have said this on the show. I have said it on my page. Humans, we really are sometimes just well dressed animals. You know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of well-dressed animals, I guess I should probably go and get dressed.
God. Oh boy. Wish I had known that.
Oh, and just one last thing for Detective D, who says that Avatar is better than The Force Awakens. You're wrong.
Oh.
Yes, he said that in the comments section uh, on our last podcast on the Star Wars show.
Interesting.
In fact, uh, not to go too deep into this because this is something we could probably do on another show soon. Uh, Apparently, the three of us were in the minority on enjoying Rogue One and A Force Awakens. If it's by any, if it's, judging by the comments on the show page from last week, there was a lot of hate for A New Hope and Rogue One, which surprised me quite a bit, to be honest.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, you should go ahead and take a look at that if you haven't.
All right. Yeah, we'll check it out.
And yeah, maybe we'll finally do the the shit. Let me start that over again because I just had a brain fart. Maybe next week we can do our let's take a look at the
Oh
comments and
yeah,
reply to
absolutely.
comments.
Absolutely.
We've probably got enough material for that show now.
All
So.
right, cool.
All right. So until then, if you enjoyed our show, check out the other podcasts we have at thesupernats.com, including my other podcast with Jerry Janda, Weekday Matinee. And until next time, may all of your journeys be filled with pure imagination.